Good evening. Welcome to the September 11th regularly scheduled Valley View School Board. I would ask that you all rise and join us as the colors are presented by the Bolingbrook Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps. Pledge allegiance. Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. While we're at it, why don't we rise in a moment of silence. 22 years ago, almost 3,000 citizens of the United States and guest visa residents of the United States were killed in 4 terrorist attacks. We're all aware of it. It's been 22 years. But the efforts of those who were running into the buildings as others were running out of the building should never, ever be forgotten. The first responders of this country and the military people who put so much on the line so we have what we call a free country and a democracy and a republic should never, ever go under valued and certainly should never be forgotten. The sacrifices were made that day and subsequently the years later in maintaining our democracy. So a moment of silence. Thank you. It was 22 years ago, but if you were old enough and you're in this room, it doesn't take long for you to close your eyes and think about what you're doing that morning when you heard those phone calls. Having family in the military, having family at work for the airlines, I can tell you your thoughts are racing, and do I know somebody? Is a friend of mine involved in this? What's going on? My heart goes out to some close family friends who did lose people in 9/11. And my wife, in fact, works for American Airlines, or did at the time, and a woman that she worked with was one of the people that was killed. So it is, these are people just going to work every day, trying to make a living, do the right things for their families and their communities, and something really bad happened that impacted not just this country, but the rest of the world for a whole long time. So just reflect on that as your evening goes along, and when this day rolls around in 2024 and 2025 and so on and so forth, that we should never forget this. So thank you for the indulgence. Mr. Zach, if you would please.
Our mission is to empower every learner to be college, career, and life ready, and to develop, grow, and achieve as a productive citizen.
Ms. Kinder, the agenda, please.
Thank you, President Quigley. I would like to ask the board to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. Student and staff recognition. The Illinois High School Track and Field Championship qualifiers and all-staters. Come on down, guys. You're track people. You should be fast. Unless you're a shot putter. They get
Good evening. My name is Patrick Woods. I'm the newly appointed athletic director at Bolingbrook High School. So last meeting I was at, you guys approved me, and I'm here at the next one to share some good news and good things that happen. So it is my honor and pleasure to introduce someone who I've found in the very short 30-something days that I've been here is very dedicated and passionate to his craft, which is running, and lots of it. And I'll introduce Coach Lester.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Thank you to the board. Thanks, Superintendent Kinder. Thank you for rescheduling. We originally had this for mid-June, but as we know, like how a lot of kids are, we had a lot of seniors in this group that were already ready to go off onto life right after they graduated. So thank you. We do have a good number of our team here today. 2023 was an exceptional year for us. We had 115 athletes on the team. That was more than like the largest team we've had since the early 90s. The first time we've had over 100 athletes in the 21st century. My first year we had 31, my second year we had 68, and again, 2023 at 115. That led to our kind of mantra and motto of the season that was 100, 8, and 4, where 100 plus of us, really 115, that made our team so great, that walked through the halls, that represented our team culture in such a way. But really, when it comes to the state meet, you get 8 names that you could put down for a relay. And all 8 of them earned that spot. Okay, a lot of them, I hate the word alternate because they earned that spot. Yes, they're an alternate, they earned that spot. In my book, they're considered all state, or whatever it is. So that's the 100, that's the 8. And then 4 get to represent us out on the track. And that's really what it came down to. And with that, we had 3 relays head down to state in 2023. That was the first time, only the second time ever we had that in Bolingbrook history. The last time was 2007 when a guy named Troy Doris was on the team. He was pretty good. I don't know if you know him. Again, it's so much like that just represents Valley View so well. We're such a big school district. We're such a big, Bolingbrook High School, such a great school, but it really comes down to the kids, right? And they are the ones that we do this for. That's really what it's all about. And again, the guys we have here tonight, we had our 4x400 relay, got 8th place in state, which is considered all state. We have all 4 of them. I consider all 4 of these guys who are either racing in that or some of them are alternates, all considered all state in my mind. And then someone who just graduated, he's, last I've checked, continuing his education at Howard University. I know there's still some things there. I haven't been as much in touch with them, but Ife Anoma, who just graduated, was an all-stater in the 400-meter dash. So I'll introduce some of our, 4 of our 8 guys, as I like to say, of our all-state 4x400 meter relay. Hussein Al-Mosawi. Give it up, Hussein. Shake there. Vince DeFarno. Mikhail Bolden. Jason Vervac, and one that just showed up who is also a huge part of the team, Caleb Wallace. I got you a certificate here in a second.
For those of you who don't know, he referenced Troy Doris, who was an Olympic triple jumper. And that's been, I saw Troy yesterday, and he's at least 30-something, so it's been a few years. Moving down the agenda, we are at, the video, spotlight video. Karen Orr, English teacher and arts teacher at John J. Lukancic. Ms. Kinder.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Bolingbrook High School, Major Thomas, and cadets. We appreciate you being present tonight to commemorate Patriot Day, 9/11. And thank you also to our athletes and Coach Lester. All right, moving on the agenda, we'd like to have our staff spotlight this evening with Kristen Orr, English Language Arts teacher here at John J. Lukancic Middle School. We'll take a few minutes to visit with Mrs. Orr this evening.
Because Could we also highlight this green? She's missing out on something. Could that be a negative feeling for her?
Kind of.
Yeah. So can we sometimes feel positive and negatively about the same situation? Potentially, right? Okay. So it's okay to leave that green, right? Because she might feel a little bit left out by not being there for that first day of school, but she also might be really excited because she's going to meet her brother, right? All right.
I try to create a sense of belonging in the classroom by ensuring that we are being kind to each other with our communication. So a student that isn't the kind of student that verbally participates all the time is going to be less likely to participate if they think someone's going to make a comment or snicker or say something about what they're going to share. So we make it very clear at the beginning of the year that we need to maintain an open-mindedness, that we're welcoming lots of ideas, and though someone may say something that we don't agree with, we might say something that they don't agree with, but we need to be very caring in how we respond to how they share to encourage them to continue to participate. Would it be safe to say that you highlighted a lot of positive and a lot of negative feelings? Yes. Yeah, so I was walking around and it was just completely covered. Like you guys were noticing a lot of the emotions. Alina kind of seems to be a bit of a roller coaster, right? There's just something so wonderful about helping students make the transition to the next point in their academic journey. And getting to see them come in, a little nervous and a little scared and a little apprehensive, and they grow so much in 6th grade, and we get to witness that. Plus, when they go to 7th grade, we still get to see them. And then they go to 8th grade, and we still get to see them, and they get to come to our doors and knock while we're teaching and wave at us, and it's just such a cup filler to teach 6th grade. What are some other emotions that you noticed that Alina was feeling that would be considered negative? Olivia? Annoyed. How many of you noticed that Alina was annoyed at some point in the story? Yeah, I know you guys said it too. Good. All right. What is another emotion? Marcus? Disappointed. How many of you noticed disappointment in Alina? I really want them to leave this classroom as a critical thinker. Not just absorbing information that we're giving them, but questioning the information that they're reading about to help them dig deeper, to help them develop a more worldly understanding of the content that we're reading. I hope they're not just reading words on a page. I hope that they're really taking it all in and learning from the experience of these characters by asking questions and analyzing the text and collaborating with their classmates to get different perspectives.
What is the go-to book for you, personally?
So the go-to book for me is a really hard question to answer. I mean, I am just a consumer of knowledge. I love nonfiction, but a book that I found myself reading again, and it's gonna sound kind of bizarre, is called The Third Plate by Dan Barber. It's on the future of agriculture and food in not only the United States, but in the world. And it's just so fascinating to me because I grew up on a farm, right? There's a very systematic way that food is grown, and this kind of challenges that original thinking. And it's just so good. It's just so out of the box from what I grew up in, and I have kind of grown to love that as I get older, to have my own thinking challenged, to gain new perspectives and understanding so it's not so linear. Why was she mad at Hakeem? Raise your hand, please, raise your hand. Why was she mad at Hakeem? Conrad?
Because he destroyed everything, like the bottles of sand and stuff in her room.
All right, yeah, because he was destroying her stuff, right? An adaptive learner at Lukanzik is a flexible thinker. Someone who can gain new knowledge and then recognize that their thinking is no longer the same is kind of what we're striving for.
Thank you. As always, Mr. Blaney, good videos. I wanted to recognize real quickly, Major Thomas was here with the ROTC. She is our new ROTC Air Force commander at the Bolingbrook High School. So next time she gets here, we'll put her in front of the microphone and make her say a few words. Because I figure if you're like a DI for those kids, you can at least speak in front of the public. That'd be my guess. Moving down the agenda, Mr. Renich, please. Treasurer's information reports and action reports.
Thank you. Treasurer's Action Report 6.1 for the month of August includes the normal schedule of financial reports, balance sheets, summary of revenues and expenditures, interim obligations, and debt service payments totaling $10,132,085.48 for your approval.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Paying bills, roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Mr. Renich.
6.2, the schedule of bills for the month of September. We have 6 funds totaling bills payable of $7,264,785.43 for your approval.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Mr. Renich.
In your packet, you have 6.4 summary of investments for the month of August, along with 6.5 state funding update, 6.6, which is property tax is received, and 6.7 all schools trust account activity. This is an informational agenda item.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Renich? Seeing none, hearing none. Moving down the agenda. Consent agenda. Ms. Kinder.
Yes, we have 6 items under consent that we're seeking your approval on. 7.1, board meeting minutes, August 21st, 2023. 7.2, executive session meeting minutes, August 21st, 2023. 7.3, gifts to Romeoville High School and Kenneth L. Hermanson School. 7.4, student activity contract, Literati Book Fair and Jamie McGee Elementary School. And 7.5, student activity contract with Perfect Pastries and Jonas Salk Elementary. And 7.6, student activity contract with Poppin' Popcorn and Irene King Elementary School.
Is there a motion? Second. Liz seconded. She's lost her voice because of the parade yesterday. We have a motion, we second. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Present.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Moving down the agenda. Liaison reports. Any and all from my left? That would be you, Deb. Any and all from my right? Righty? I have no reports. Audience participation. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address the board this evening? Once, looking twice, 3 times. Moving down the agenda. Action report. Ms. Nash, Human Resources.
Yes, Action Report 10.1 is our consolidated action report. We're seeking your approval this evening on all items as presented.
A motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Ms. Nash.
Thank you. Action Report 10.2 is seeking approval on an agreement with the district and Bloom Board in conjunction with the newly awarded teacher vacancy grant through the Illinois State Board of Education.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Superintendent update, information reports. Ms. Kinder, if you would, please.
I'm sorry, we have action reports prior to that under item 12, so I'll start there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. 12.1, student due process.
Gotcha. 12.1, student due process.
Yep. 12.1, student due process case A as presented.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora? Yes. Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Now moving down the agenda.
All right, and now 12.2. 12.2 is resolution number 2402, authorizing commencement of social media litigation and approval of the contingency fee contract.
A motion?
So move.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. A roll call vote would be in order.
Member Campbell? Yes. Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. Superintendent information report. Now. Number 13.
All right, I'm going to wait till it gets up on the screen here. Okay, here we go. Okay, a brief update today. We do have our extended update under learning and growth in the state academic data review. So I did just want to acknowledge some of the events and commemorative activities that took place in our community this morning. At Irene King Elementary School, our students did a whole school-wide Pledge of Allegiance indoors because of the inclement weather, along with our Romeoville Police and Fire present in order to remember the event of 9/11 and those who lost their lives, and also acknowledge our first responders who are so very important and play such a critical role in our keeping our community and our schools safe. And also this morning at Carillon, we attended an event. We had both the Bolingbrook Air Force Junior ROTC and the Romeoville Marine Corps Junior ROTC present to participate in that event with our community, and we are very appreciative of that. Continuing with connecting at curriculum nights, almost all of our curriculum nights have been held. We do have some that will occur this week. I know we have Oakview, Jane Addams, Brooks, and KLH, to name a few of them. But they've been very well-attended events, and we appreciate our staff and our leaders taking this extra effort in the evenings to engage with our families and connect our students and families to the learning and growth and that important partnership with our schools. Yesterday, it was not pouring rain, thankfully, this year. We had a very successful community parade at the Village Pathways Parade in Bolingbrook, and we'll hope for just a great of turnout next weekend with the Romeoville Founders Day Parade. But it was great to see all of our community out and appreciate our student groups and staff who participated and had a lot of fun out in the great sunny afternoon yesterday. I wanted to make mention of one new event to our community, and that is the Romeoville Grandparents' Day event, which will be taking place this week. And this is taking place at the Romeoville Athletic and Event Center. Senator Capel, Representative Manley, Will County Executive Bertrino Tarrant, and State Rep Avelar are sponsoring this event. And this is a great resource for seniors and grandparents in the community, particularly those supporting families or children in our schools. Well, there'll be resources to support that and many other aspects as well. So we encourage you to spread the word and to come join us at the Romeoville Athletic and Event Center on Wednesday. Our nutrition services team was out in full force at the parade, recruiting and letting everyone know that we are hiring and looking for great team members to come and join the awesome team that we have. So please spread the word. It's a great job, particularly with the flexible schedule that connects with our school hours, and we'd love to have you visit us online and put in an application to join our nutrition services team. Before we move on to our learning and growth update tonight, I just wanted to make a special mention of the Best High Schools U.S. News rankings, the U.S. News and World Report rankings. Both of our high schools, both Bolingbrook High School and Romeoville High School, were ranked in the top 16% of Illinois public high schools, and that is a national ranking. But in terms of the Illinois rankings, of more than 660 schools in the public domain that were ranked in Illinois, that is where our schools landed. And this is a testament to the hard work of our staff and everyone involved in supporting our students, and of course the hard work of our students. This ranking takes into consideration college readiness, qualifying scores on AP exams, state assessment proficiency, also exceeding state expectations on the performance for underserved students, graduation rate, and takes all of those factors combined together to say how well we are preparing our students in high school for success in high school and beyond. So this is a great recognition that we are very proud to display, and it certainly speaks to the work that we are doing to ensure that our students are prepared and have success in high school and beyond. So just one special mention, very deserving for our high schools, and it's also a testament not just to our high school leadership and staff, but to everyone in the big picture, pre-K-12, who works very hard to make this possible for our students. And we have a lot of work to do, but it's a great recognition that we're on the right path. And I just wanted to congratulate our schools, our leaders, our staff, and encourage everyone to keep up the great work. So with that, we will transition into our learning and growth, our academic data review. And I'd like to invite the team up to the podium this evening. Our Executive Directors of Educational Service, Adam Herder and Maria Burgos, will get us started, and we'll take a brief look at how we are doing in the sense of state academic data.
Good evening. So tonight's update relates to our strategic plan priority of learning and growth. We are going to discuss the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, as well as the Scholastic Assessment Test, which it focuses on students learning in English language arts and math. To connect to our strategic plan, we all know that we are building a responsive and caring culture. We have equitable systems that develop to support that, as well as using resources and empowering all of our stakeholders to support students in their learning and growth. Specifically, I'd like to call attention to the portrait of a learner. We noticed in the staff spotlight tonight an adaptive learner was mentioned about students needing to be able to be flexible. Those 4 skills, being an empathetic citizen, critical thinker, effective communicator, and adaptive learner, are all crucial for students to perform at a high level on these assessments. Noting for our learning and growth priority, we talk about every learner being able to have access to equitable opportunities for success, and more than just developing basic skills, the ability to persevere, to advocate for themselves, and to truly take ownership of their learning, which is how we know that all of our students from earliest ages all the way through high school and beyond will be able to be successful.
Good evening. As Adam mentioned, tonight we'll be discussing the focus of our Learning and Growth Initiative. Our main objective is to ensure students' academic growth and proficiency increase annually on Illinois state assessments. And we will be sharing our most recent test results from the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, also known as IAR, in grades 3rd through 8th grade, and the Scholastic Assessment Test, or SAT, in grade 11, taken in the spring of 2023. It's important to look at that data because we know that it tells a story of post-pandemic recovery and also demonstrates our improvement efforts. Our focus is on both catching students up and enriching opportunities for advanced growth. We're proud to share that learning outcomes have impacted nearly all areas, and we have also implemented targeted action plans to continue addressing our areas of most need. There is much work to be done, but we also know that there's a lot to celebrate. Michael Licasio, our Director of Data and Assessment, will be sharing some information that was previously shared with us last year in regards to research and the impact the pandemic had on student learning.
So just kind of touch base on where we were last year. We presented this slide previously. You're looking at NWEA and Renaissance Star, 2 of the largest test organizations in America. In 2022, they conducted research with hundreds of thousands of students, and they came to very similar conclusions. NWEA found that there was significant learning loss for all students, regardless of performance level, regardless of subgroup, and predicted a minimum of 3 years for achievement to return to 2019 levels. And Renaissance Star, very similar outcomes, predicts a multi-year recovery. What's interesting to note is that both of them stress that math achievement has been impacted to a greater extent than ELA, and this will tie into the story we had to share today. So the theme we're going to see in the data slides that Adam Herder and Maria Burgos are going to present speaks to kind of reining in the influence of the pandemic and beginning our recovery. While the research has projected 3 to 5 years to recover, what we have found is that in ELA, we have seen substantial gains made since last year, closing the gap and even in some cases surpassing where we were in 2019. Yet in math, as much of the national research has shown, that challenge is a little greater and harder to overcome. So we'll move into IAR, which is the state assessment for grades 3 through 8, which measures English and math proficiency. And I will now pass it over to Adam Herder.
Thank you. So our first slide regarding IAR is looking at last spring data only. And you'll notice we have grade levels 3 through 8, as well as red bars for English language arts and blue bars for math. A few things stand out here. One is in ELA, we tend to have a higher level of proficiency than we do in math at almost all grade levels except for 3rd grade. Looking at the English language arts scores, similar to what Michael Ocasio just mentioned, you can see throughout our system over time, and this has been consistent both pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic in English language arts, that proficiency rates increase over time. That 8th grade number is significant and is also significantly above where we were pre-pandemic. So that's one of the major celebrations in this presentation this evening. And that's due to the extremely hard work of our educators, persevering through very difficult circumstances, our students, and as well as our families and leaders in supporting those educators and students in that performance. In mathematics, as Mr. Locascio mentioned, we have some ups and downs throughout our system without that sort of same consistent trend. And we'll be talking later in this presentation about some of the specific targeted efforts that we'll be using to address getting our mathematics performance levels back up and past our pre-pandemic performance.
And now we'll be taking a look of where we're at in terms of non-cohort comparisons in English language arts. When we speak about non-cohort comparisons, we're looking at the overall performance of all students in a particular subject, regardless of when they started their educational journey with us. It allows us to see overall how our students are doing. By examining non-cohort data, we can understand their overall progress and achievements of our students as a whole. What this graphic demonstrates is that in 2023, proficiency rates in English language arts are closing the gap, but also in some cases have surpassed outcomes from 2019. And like Adam mentioned, in grade 8, we're able to see that our 8th graders have achieved one of the highest rates of proficiency that Valley View students have ever reached, so that we're really, really proud of them. And also like to sort of spotlight to our 4th grade, who also made significant percentage growth. And then when we're looking at our cohort of students, we're seeing how they progressed in this graphic in English language arts as well in comparison to last year. And when we mention cohorts of students, we're referring to groups of students that did start their educational journey together. By looking at these cohorts, we can track student progress over time and see how they're improving compared to previous years. This allows us to understand how specific groups of students are performing and identify any specific areas where additional support may be needed. We're pleased to share that all our cohorts of students have shown improvement in English language arts from last year to this year. This means that our efforts to support student learning are making a difference. We're proud of the progress of our students and the efforts of our teachers for putting forward all of the efforts to support them. Mr. Herder will now be reviewing math results with us.
Looking at a similar comparison to what Mrs. Burros just shared regarding English language arts, when we look at the non-cohort mathematics scores, this chart illustrates 2019, 2022, and 2023. 2020, 2021 data is omitted. That was during the pandemic, where we don't have consistent data. No district across the state does. So we're trying to illustrate where we were performing pre-pandemic in 2019, and then how our students in each grade level performed last year, 2022, and then last spring, 2023. So what you can see in mathematics is there are some areas of celebration where we are closing gaps that were significant due to the pandemic back towards pre-pandemic performance levels. At the same time, we note that there are grade levels where we are already needing to significantly dig in, identify exactly what our areas of opportunity are, and work to support our educators and our students in making similar growth to what we're seeing in English language arts. When we look at the cohort performance of students in math, this being apples to apples, so for example, the 5th to 6th grade cohort, those are students who scored in 5th grade in 2022, and then in 6th grade in 2023, that same grade of students. We see for 3 of our cohorts, really 2, we see significant gains. In 3 of the other cohorts, we see a decline from 3rd to 4th grade, pretty much status quo 4th to 5th grade, as well as staying the same from 7th to 8th grade. And what these slides for math really illustrate is our specific example and value view of that research that Mr. Locascio shared regarding the gaps that were created in mathematics. And we'll be speaking this evening about support and efforts to make sure that we get back on track.
When do you want us to ask questions?
We could do questions now, or we could discuss, we have some slides about the mathematics data and what we're doing to support our educators and our students going forward, but we could take questions at any time.
I guess my question is a couple things. First of all, the math does concern me, and if this continues, are we going to take a look at what we're using for math materials, like the books and stuff, at some point in time? Maybe it's not anything else? That. And second of all, you know, I know we're going up, and we should be, but 27% is nothing close to the 60 at English. And those children get the same amount of time for learning. You know, they should be somewhat comparable, so there's got to be something that bothers me that's going on. And so hopefully we can find that out. But one thing does concern me, and it always has, is the books that we're using.
So specific to your first question regarding the curriculum resources that we use, that's a constant cycle of review, evaluating the impact of those resources. One thing we know is pre-pandemic, those resources were producing moderate to above moderate success. And so that gives us, you know, the implication that if we get back to what we were doing prior and using the resources in that way, that we will see similar results. One difference between mathematics and English language arts that is impacting our ability to catch up also impacted how far back our scores dropped due to the pandemic. English language arts, and this is national research, it applies to almost every system in the country. Specifically, we see it in the Illinois data as well, that we'll be presenting later this fall once the state releases their averages. That cooperative learning in mathematics is crucial to us having success, and we had those environments really well developed pre-pandemic, where students were doing a lot of the work, the teacher was facilitating, but not having to do all the heavy lifting. Students were able to learn from their peers, which is one of the most effective ways for them to grow, especially in mathematics, as you know. That took a hit during the pandemic, and we need to get back to supporting our instructional methods that produce those environments again. The pandemic led a lot of people, obviously, to being very isolated. Even when we were back in person, we were in a very isolated environment. And so it's getting our classroom cultures really back to that idea that the more students can be interacting with each other, the faster that we should see that recovery. So agree that we definitely need to look at the resources. We do look at those from unit to unit. How are the students performing on the assessments? They should be performing better this year than they did last year on the assessments if we're gonna see a recovery. If we notice that, you know, flatlining over time, it would be reasonable, of course, to look at our resources. But at this time, we feel comfortable with what we're using. It's more a matter of being able to support our educators to get those classroom cultures back up to those heavy discussion, heavy student problem-solving, critical thinking type of math classrooms. And we can discuss that more. We'll move on at this time to the Scholastic Assessment Test, also known as the SAT. We'll be looking at the SAT performance of our grade 11 students last spring. The SAT is also a graduation requirement, and serves as a college entrance exam in the state of Illinois. We see very similar trends to what we have seen in elementary and middle school on the IAR assessment for our SAT scores in high school. Here you can see our comparison over time of our performance in 11th grade on the SAT pre-pandemic. You can see we took a decline due to the pandemic. We have increased slightly in English language arts, but a similar story in mathematics where we are still working to get back to pre-pandemic levels. Did want to provide context. We don't have the 2023 Illinois state data yet for SAT. We can compare 2019 and 2020, however. The state averages is the graph on the left. You can see that the state also did have declines both in ELA and math in 2022 compared to pre-pandemic levels. And once that state data is released, we'll be able to assess where we are in comparison to that. And of course, our goal is not to be just at the state average. We know that we are capable of much, much more than that. But that gives us one benchmark as to measure against the whole mathematics system in the state of how we're performing. To add a little context to the high school conversation, SAT, of course, is a very important measure to look at academic performance of our students throughout our system. Also wanted to just mention the state also has a broader framework regarding how it determines college and career readiness that includes academic performance with the SAT, but also significant other factors like a student's GPA, their attendance, are they taking dual credit and advanced placement classes for college credit while they're still in high school, how are they participating in athletics, clubs, and activities, and also are they having consistent work experience either during the year or over consecutive summers, and are they performing community service? So this is an entire framework that we as a district, every other district in Illinois is tracking not only students' SAT scores, but all of these other factors listed there to designate students as truly college and career ready. And the idea being that it's similar to our portrait of a learner. We obviously know students need that academic performance to be successful going forward. They also need other skills, like they're showing up on time for work. They're coming to school every day. That's an indicator that we know they're going to be able to perform highly in the workforce or in college or enlisting in the military, just for example. So the data we have for our district over the last 3 years of that measure is a celebration. We expect our result to be upwards of 30% this spring once all the data is calculated and submitted to the State Board of Education for reporting on our district scorecard. This is due to significant amount of work, both at the district level. Our Director of College and Career Readiness, Dorletta Payton, is in the audience tonight, who spearheaded much of this work. Our high school educators, as well as leaders, spearheaded much of this work, getting students enrolled in activities, working on students' attendance, making sure that students are, earning very high grades to keep those GPAs up. And this dovetails well with the announcement that Superintendent Kinder made about the ratings of our high schools being significantly positive in the most recent U.S. News & World Report school rankings. We also anticipate, again, 32%. We are seeing consistent gains each year, but we anticipate an even larger gain into next year, and of course has aspirations much higher than that number as well.
And next, we'll be talking through how we'll be supporting our learners. We have had, both at the district and at the school level, an analysis of our spring scores. Our principals are keeping a close eye along with our teachers and building supports for our students to continue ensuring that they're academically successful. In addition to looking at IAR and SAT scores, we also look deeper as an analysis. We look at grades, ethnicity, socioeconomic situations, language proficiencies in order to be fully responsive and intentional in regards to the steps that we take to support our learners. And just as Adam mentioned specifically, and I know this is in regards to the question that was posed earlier, we're looking at the supports that are taking place within our curricular needs, specifically for Elementary, thanks to the board support, we've been implementing social studies and science, which is a support that also helps build literacy, so that's really important. And I don't want to steal Karen Hess's thunder here, but she will be walking us through a pilot that we have in place for ELA as well. We're being really intentional around the supports that we bring in order to make sure that our students have what they need. But in addition to being supportive in regards to the professional development that needs to take place for our teachers as well. So there is a definite plan that has started, and there are just supports that are being put in place to make sure that all of our learners are making the gains that they need. And in addition to that, we're continuing to just look at all of the supports that we bring to the table. And Amanda Dykstra, our Assistant Director of Curriculum, is going to walk us through our intentionality of things that we've done during the summer to start making sure that our students are geared up and ready to go. And Karen Hess will highlight our plans for both reading and math for this school year.
This summer, we knew there had been a lot of isolation due to the pandemic, which was discussed in that impact on mathematics instruction and just learning overall. So in elementary, we made a very intentional decision to braid together and merge the 21st century enrichment programming with the academic programming to really give students the opportunity to collaboratively learn and engage in enrichment opportunities. In elementary this summer, we were able to have over 900 of our students in attendance during this programming to partner with community organizations. The students had the opportunity to go swimming or soccer with the Bolingbrook Soccer Association. The Bolingbrook STEM Association came and was interactive with our students to provide those opportunities that some of our students missed out on during the pandemic because we did not have that. It allowed for the continuation of learning for our students and was staffed by some of our greatest educators who we know have the best educators in the state, I believe, but in our district who are helping our students support that. Now, we also integrated Kindergarten Bridge throughout all 12 of our elementary schools, and what this does is allows our earliest kindergarten students who are coming in to ease into that educational experience. We do this to ensure that our earliest learners are prepared for those rigorous expectations we have for learning throughout the course of their career, and we continue that each year to ensure they're set up for success. I'm going to hand it over to Adam, who will discuss middle school.
So similar to our 21st century enrichment and academic programs in elementary school, the middle schools, again this summer, hosted programs at all 5 buildings to engage students in connection activities, to be connected to school, to increase our ability to have them engage in learning, but also to support some of those learning gaps. One of the most successful summer programs we've ever had, attributed to our Director of Mathematics, Christy Vey, surrounded our middle and high school math enrichment, in which several dozen students were able to engage in independent summer work to close gaps from the pandemic in order to be able to take higher level mathematics courses when they enrolled in school this fall. Another celebration from that project was the demographics of students that we were able to enroll in those programs significantly matches the demographics of our district, meaning that we're providing equitable opportunities to that enrichment and closing gaps across our system. And that's just one example in mathematics of being very intentional, utilizing both the resources we have, but additional instruction to catch students up and even push them higher. We also ran our high school summer school, which allows students to recover credits and stay on track, and also to take courses for enrichment as well. And we had another successful summer in our high school program. We'll turn it over to Karen Hess, who will discuss some of our even more targeted supports in elementary school.
So when we were thinking about our literacy instructional plans for this year, we spent a great deal of time digging into our data, both the IAR data and the local assessment data that we have, and we identified several action steps to better support our students in literacy learning and extend the gains that we were able to see in that in elementary. We have something that we call Jump Start at our elementary buildings, and that takes place during the first 6 weeks of school. And during that time, our intervention and enrichment coordinators and our reading recovery coordinators push into classrooms and also take some kids for some intervention work. And we made sure to make that very intentional this year. So we worked with them on who they might target so that it would be specific students that could benefit from this front loading at the beginning of the year. And then we also picked intentionally the standards that they would support so that those would be most impactful to creating proficient readers and writers in our elementary students. We're also engaging, since there are now 2 early release sessions happening each month, 6 of those early release sessions are district directed. So we are creating at the district level opportunities in both reading and math to bring in those cooperative learning best practices that Adam was discussing have impacted our data in the past. And we're using our coaches, our instructional coaches, and our learning environment coordinators, along with their admin, to present that message at all 12 buildings at those 6 early releases. And we anticipate that that will lead to much stronger writing outcomes, which has been something that we know is really important for life, but we also see that on our assessments as well. We are also continuing our integrated curriculum mapping project. We are actually launching that in our kindergarten and first grade classrooms, and that means that social studies and science is being embedded into literacy instruction, and we're really helping to support teachers in putting an emphasis on language skills that will help our students to get active in their learning and incorporate a lot of discussion, writing, and literacy skills every day. And finally, we are engaging in the ELA pilot that Maria mentioned. So for English language arts, primarily focused on grades 2 through 5, we are piloting 2 resources. We have 60 classrooms that are piloting, and they represent our gen ed students, our dual language students, and also our special program students, so like our CARES students or our CrossCat students as well. And we know that all of these things in combination will lead to even more gains throughout our next year. And then when it comes to math supports, equally, we were very intentional in what we wanted to do with the personnel that we have and the time that we get to spend supporting our teachers with professional development. So again, we did that deep dive into our data to find out just what is something that we can make an impact on to help raise that math achievement right away. We know that fractions is a new way of thinking for kids that begins in 4th and 5th grade. And we typically have seen that that often leads to a drop in their performance even prior to the pandemic. And so being able to identify that in our data now, we are again using that jumpstart period, so that first 6 weeks with our intervention and enrichment coordinators to front load our students to make sure they're learning some of those fraction pieces that they may have missed in the past so that they can practice it all year long. We're also, again, utilizing our early release time with our teachers. So in all of those sessions, they're focused on both literacy and math, and it's all around those collective practices that'll help support our kids in taking ownership over the learning and the thinking when they're solving math problems, and then being able to share that and being able to write about it, which we know is really important on IAR. We also are continuing to use our intervention and enrichment coordinators also to fill those foundational gaps. So with math, if you have missed something in the past when it comes to counting or addition or subtraction or even multiplication and division, it's hard to apply it to a really complex problem. So our intervention and enrichment coordinators do a wonderful job of identifying just where those gaps are at and then providing instruction during our win time, or that's also called what I need time. And so they provide that for those students as well. And that's continuing. Our classroom teachers also do a wonderful job of doing targeted support. So for kids that maybe don't have quite as big of a gap, during that win time, they can do that reteaching, and they can also provide some foundational skills support for the students. And we're continuing to support that through professional development and coaching as well. And our last piece we're really proud of is we're beginning something new. It's called our Enriched Math Pilot. We are starting small to make sure we can do it really well so that we can hopefully replicate across the district. This pilot came from parent advocacy and parent asking, and really we know that a lot of times we're focused in our students that we see have gaps, but it's also really important to take our kids that are on level or even above and continue to challenge them so they can stay there. So in our Enriched Math Pilot, there is a section in 3rd grade at 3 of our buildings, Jamie McGee, Oakview, and Woodview. And in that one section, students flexibly group there during math. So they come from one classroom and move into a specific teacher's classroom, and they get that really good high-level challenging instruction on a daily basis. And then in addition, during the what I need time, that win time, which is flexible, even more students are able to move into that enrichment classroom if they're ready and experience those high-level supports. And then even in the other classrooms that are not considered the enrichment room, our interventionists are providing 1 day a week of that deeper thinking too, because we can't close the gaps just by staying on what is surface level. We have to really dig deep and give our students those tools. So those are our main plans, and we think that they're pretty well thought out, and we're really thankful to the teachers for helping us to support that implementation, to support our students. I'll turn this back over to Adam Herder if there's no questions.
So briefly, similarly to our K-5 system, part of our system in literacy, we'll discuss literacy briefly, and then mathematics at the middle school and high school level. We know that our middle school literacy performance has been consistently positive. It's a major celebration from the presentation this evening. Once we see the state averages, we're also expecting extreme outsized growth, even in comparison to what the other schools have done in the state. And so we are focusing, of course, on the same practices that resulted in that dramatic growth. We are going to dig into where our system is not having as much impact on some students and provide independent supports. That happens during our Future Ready time in middle school, both in the Future Ready literacy and Future Ready math class. And then supporting teachers working in teams and having the chance to collaborate around best instructional practices. That extends to high school and literacy, where we're continuing to develop a common curriculum so that all opportunities are equitable for all students, and also through a culturally inclusive experience in their English classrooms. We also have the first approved in the area transitional English course, and this guarantees that every graduating senior will not need to take remedial courses when enrolling after graduation at our local junior college or another school in Illinois. Our director of literacy, Kara Jennings, is actually on the panel for our region for approving other districts' transitional English courses now. And that course is up and running, and we will see a dramatic increase in the number of students designated college and career ready as a result. In mathematics, briefly we discussed this before, some things to point out specific to member Sikора's questions. We are looking to use our early release time now that we have 2 early release blocks where teachers have more blocks for professional learning to provide increased opportunities similar to what we did pre-pandemic to plan for and develop newer, updated, the most highest best practice opportunities to get students working in our classrooms in a collaborative manner. And then we also have a resource that we're using in our Future Ready time as a companion to illustrative mathematics, which is our core resource in math in middle and high school. Zern is a product that addresses some of those learning gaps that students are now using. It's a computer-based program where they get some instruction from a teacher. It's aligned directly to what they're doing in math class, but it is an example, to member Sikора's point, of us really needing to look beyond what we do now at other opportunities and other resources to make sure that we're balanced and able to support every learner. Similarly, in high school, we have the same approach, a very aligned system, K through 12, in terms of our approach to mathematics. One major difference here is that we have secured Delta Math as a similar resource to that Zern resource in middle school, that high school students who have gaps will be able to utilize to close those gaps, which not only supports the student, but supports our educators so that students are ready to go for our universal curriculum in their math classrooms. So in conclusion, we are continuing to close gaps due to unfinished learning. We have some significant celebrations. We also have significant areas of need and significant work to do. And the goal this evening is to point out both of those and some of the targeted steps that we're going to be taking to address those greatest area of need. We would all be remiss in ending without thanking our educators, first and foremost, for the work that has been done throughout the pandemic, after the pandemic, getting our students back engaged in school, getting us back to that new normal. Both our significant positives, our significant negatives, none of that is happening without just this dedication that we have from our educators in our system who are doing just tremendously heavy lifting to support significant challenges in terms of what we need to help our students learn. At the same time, I want to congratulate our educators on some really significant growth and learning that we see in our data and that we see anecdotally every day when we're in classrooms. And appreciation, of course, for our students and families for remaining engaged and continuing to work hard and persevere as well. And we are available for any questions for any of us up here about any other presentation this evening.
Anybody have any questions? I have just a quick one. You've got on the where we are now non-cohort comparison grade 12 students, you expect that to jump 10%. What's the basis for that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
It's, I don't know, it's pretty far down the slide. It's where we are now, non-cohort comparison, grade 12 students, college and career ready. We're at 22% in 2023, and you expect to go to 32%. That's a pretty high jump. What's the...
Well, and I'll say, number one, appreciation to both Mrs. Payton as well as our high school leaders and educators for implementing the system. So what this really relies on is both SAT performance, but things like enrollment in AP courses, kids passing AP exams, kids coming to school at 95% plus their junior and senior year combined attendance, having a certain GPA above like a 2.8 GPA on a 4-point scale, as well as these other, they're academic factors, of course, because they relate to school, but things like being engaged in activities so kids can earn that designation with a variety of things that they can check off on that list. Besides attendance in the grade point average, it's like being in 2 clubs or activities, or in athletics gives them credit towards that state designation. And so we've expanded opportunities dramatically. The schools have also put in more sophisticated systems to be able to track that, so we're making sure that every student gets credit for those experiences. And so as we've gone throughout the years, even beginning in 2020, that system has developed over time, and just wanted this slide to be in here to celebrate the fact that that infrastructure continues to evolve. And that transitional English class is another great example of this. We have a transitional math class that gets a lot of our students marked as college and career ready for math upon graduation. We haven't had the transitional English class. Now that we do, that's another reason we expect this number to be even more significant going forward. Oh, and Michael will add some answers too.
Just to point out, this number is not made up. All the information shared with the state comes from our student information system, so we're able to create our own reporting that projects out what we expect to see. So we're not just saying, well, we expect 10%. We ran all of our students, peddling against all of those metrics, and we calculated out to be 32%. So that's what we expect to see because that's what our reporting shows.
Thanks. Others? Deb?
I just have a comment. First of all, to congratulate the high schools on being named best high schools in U.S. ranking. But the public needs to know that that comes from elementary school, middle school to high school, because if those teachers did not work so hard with our kids did not work hard to achieve, we wouldn't be there. So we need to recognize, and I think Superintendent Kender did that, in saying that all of our teachers are doing a great job, and they wouldn't be this good at the high school if it wasn't for the build up until then. So congratulations to all the teachers.
Anyone else?
Question. Everything's taken on a chart, so if we went back to 2016 through 2019 and had a trend line going up on the kids going, and where are we going to project in 2024? Because we're just taking the low point. So where were we in 2017, 18, 19, and you're just looking at a simple trend line. So we should have continuous growth going elevated like this. So where would we come into that? Because we're taking it from our lowest point here.
Yeah, we would definitely have to dig into that. It's a hard one to answer just immediately this evening with great accuracy. I think in English language arts, we would see a trend line similar to where we're performing now, near to the end of our 3-8 system and then into high school. In mathematics, I'll recall from my days as the executive director in elementary school, we would kind of have a bit of an up and down depending on the grade level, and had not always had that consistent trend line that you're describing as well. And so I think the key for us would be we had significant gains, at least in the aggregate, not every school, obviously, or every grade level, every time, every cohort of students. We were in a very solid place of implementation with a lot of our efforts right at the pandemic. The goal now being, it does almost sort of establish a new trend line. And I think it's a balance between doing exactly what you're saying, going back and looking at where should our system be if we take the pandemic out of it, because that's important for us to look at, as well as sort of our new normal in terms of, meeting our students where they're at now in terms of the supports they need. And once we close those gaps, I think it will be very realistic to start looking back at what that trend line would have been without the pandemic, because then we should be seeing the impact of our universal system over multiple years on students.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, moving down the agenda. Legal services, is that it? Is that everything?
I'm sorry, there was one more information report, and I'll be quick with it. Thank you to the team for sharing that information, and of course to our educators and our support staff and our leaders who are working very hard to make sure that we are seeing that positive trend line continue well into the future. So great work happening, and we're excited to continue to move that forward. We appreciate all of your efforts. All right, information report 13.3 is the Remind Hub communication platform. And this is information that we are bringing forward. We'll be seeking approval at the upcoming board meeting. And this is for the purchase of the Remind Hub as a communication app. And this is going to be specifically utilized at middle school, high school, and STEP. We learned just recently the extent at which the free platform, communication platform, was being used in a text basis or in the app by predominantly educators at these levels. The Remind service, many of you may be familiar with it, has always been a free tool. Well, we had recently learned that due to the high level of usage and to changes occurring in that company, that the individual user message would be limited, and we learned that many of our educators were in fact utilizing this, whether it would be for classes like AP classes or clubs or activities or sports. And so based on that high level of usage and the ease at which this tool operates and is able to meet a need for communicating both to and from with parents and students, we are recommending that we do go ahead and purchase this. You may recall that we recently brought forth a social media policy, and that requires that all communication platforms be district approved, vetted, and managed. So that also allows us to meet that need as well, and that is a protection for our students and our educators in the sense that we ensure that we have safe communication occurring in the digital world. Our elementary and early childhood educators who do happen to be using this platform now will continue to be able to use the platform, and then we will reassess and see if the district hub access is necessary for the other levels as well. So we'll be bringing back this report for approval at the upcoming board meeting, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
All righty, thank you. Legal services report.
No report.
Thank you. Association reports, AFT. Valley View Council. Valley View Office Personnel Council.
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Valley View Council.
Gotcha.
Good evening, Superintendent Kinder, senior leadership, and members of the board. Tonight I'm here to officially welcome back the 23-24 school year for the Valley View Council and for all of us. As we now have 3 weeks under our belt, we are all settling in and the real work has certainly begun. And as I'd like to say, unfortunately, our honeymoon phase is over. I want to thank the members who came out yesterday to show their support for our community at the Bolingbrook Parade. Thank you to Superintendent Kinder and your team for organizing all of us for our shirts. And thank you to members Quigley, member Zach, and member Campbell for also coming out. And thank you for all that energy you brought, Member Campbell. I see you have no voice tonight because of it, as you carried that banner with pride. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing the other half of our district here in Romeyville next week at the parade as well. As many of you have seen, there has been quite a few updates and renovations this summer around Valley View, and in true fashion, Mike Lopez and his team showed up to complete all the tasks at hand. Thank you to our dedicated, hardworking maintenance team who puts in lots of hours and lots of overtime hours over the summer to complete these district-wide projects, and they certainly do and did one heck of a job this summer, so thank you all. I also want to thank Member Sikora and Member Sutherland for attending our union and administration professional development sessions over the summer. As you heard in the last few meetings, they were pleased to see our collaboration efforts and to gain knowledge on how we actually do business here in Valley View when it comes to conflict resolution matters. I'm very proud of the work we do with administration, and I'm very proud to be sharing these tools with all of our building reps and administration as they work daily to solve any challenges and hurdles that come up in their buildings. I want to highly encourage the rest of the members of this board to also jump in one of our upcoming sessions as we plan to expand to other administrators and building leaders this year. I know that Superintendent Kinder and I share and hold the same beliefs when it comes to how we operate and do business in this district, and I would certainly only expect that the Board of Education follows suit and begins to operate in the same fashion as well. No one is above professional development, and no one does right all the time. As adults, we must continue to collaborate and work together in all avenues that pertain to this school district. This work is not easy, and this work is not for the faint. If we don't hold the same values, show the same respect for one another, and if we don't hold one another accountable, the challenges, I promise you, are only going to become harder for all of us. None of us are perfect, and we certainly all make mistakes, but it is who we show in those moments of mistakes and how we reflect upon those situations that defines us in our partnerships. I know that I can always count on Superintendent Kinder and the members of her team up here to hear my thoughts, my frustrations, my ideas, my solutions, and most of all, my worries. And I know that if and when needed, they will bring me back down that ladder of inference and clear up any intent behind each and every situation and decision that they make. That doesn't mean that I always agree with them, because I most certainly do not, but I know that we have this mutual level of respect for one another, and we know how to operate and get through those challenges. What I continue to watch and hear out in the community from our board is not always the same, though. There has been an empty seat next to Member Sikora since February, and this board has failed to act on that. It also seems that when you hear from an employee or a parent, you automatically begin to climb that ladder of inference, and you fully don't understand the intent or the real information behind some things that are occurring and happening in this district on a daily basis. So I once again would encourage you again to partake in our trainings that will be offered for all administration and other building leaders to give you the tools to function in your roles as well. We all know it takes a village, and we all know these pieces of the puzzle work together. So join us in keeping those puzzle pieces together and learn how to better function as a board and in collaboration with the union and senior leadership is my ask of you. Along with that, I have a few other asks of the board tonight. Over the past few years, I have heard of multiple situations in which the board will show up in our buildings and at events and not follow directives or expectations of our buildings. Such things as not signing in when you check into our buildings, storming past security, or even ignoring security guards as they chase you down to ask you who you are. And not always showing the kindness that you should when meeting staff at events and in our buildings. As you all know, we have over 2,000 members in this council, and over 100 new members we add almost every single year. If you think that my members know who you are wrong. You are not at the forefront of my members' minds, and you shouldn't be. With all due respect, we do not care about your badges. In fact, my members view those badges as a sign of authority, and I can tell you it's not a positive perception that we have, and that goes the same for administrators. The only way to change that perception of those badges is for how you all treat my members when meeting them or interacting with them. The perception has been there for decades, and I'm sure Member Sikora and Member Sutherland could both attest to that. I would ask that when you visit our buildings, shake as many hands as you can. Introduce yourself. Ask them how they are. Ask them how things are going, and tell them thank you for the work that they do. Your badges are your credentials, and you should be honored and proud of them, just as I am of my title and my credentials. But it does not give us in leadership roles the right to make others feel less than, or that we in these positions of power should bow down or bend the rules or expectations just because of it. So I ask that you all treat my members with respect and kindness when visiting, because if you don't, I assure you I will hear of it, and my reaction may not be as subtle as it is here tonight. I have to share this story about Mr. Renich down there, as he spent some time in my building on Institute Day and sat down with my team and I and asked how we all were, and I was able to introduce him to my team. And one of the first things he asked was, what can I do? How can I help get this year started for you all? And in true fashion, as teachers do, we started rattling a list of things that we wanted and needed. I said, hey, this is the guy to ask. I know how this works around here. And we all settled on, we wanted longer USB cords for our new smart boards that were installed this summer. And lo and behold, a week later, John came back to my building and hand-delivered those cords to me as I was on duty outside for AM supervision, and hand-delivered them to all of my team. Things like that go a long way, folks. And my team was very appreciative, so thank you, John, for that. Those are the types of things that keep people around and keep us all going, and we just want to feel valued and respected. One of the big pushes that I have seen Superintendent Kinder enact this year is making sure that all schools are engaged in reflection and conversation about climate, culture, and collaborative working relationships. And I am certainly a big fan of this push. Being open, honest, and doing your part in this large, gigantic puzzle is key to our own happiness, success, and most importantly, our kids' success. If you have happy teachers, you will have happy students. If you have happy students, you will see that in the plethora of data and assessments that we gather each year. And most of all, you're going to see it on those students' faces when you walk through the halls in our buildings. On that note, congratulations to all the administrators. Dr. Paskevich is here tonight, and both the staff at BHS and RHS for being recognized as 2 top schools in the state. What a great way to start the year off for all of us. I'm also glad to hear of all the grant accomplishments that we have been awarded for our early childhood program and for retention and recruitment purposes as well. Another area of opportunity I just want to point out for all of us to collaborate on is for our most in-need students and families would be a continue to push those that represent us here at the state and federal levels as we see that Title I funds continue to come in this district and support us. I know we are all aware of the drastic talks of cuts being made nationally to Title I funds, and I don't think that anyone up here wants to be in a position where we are having programs cut or opportunities taken away from our students and families. As the year gets underway, I want my membership to know that we all, in partnership, are here for them. There are lots of trying days ahead of us, and I know that Superintendent Kinder and I join in the promise to work together every day to ensure that you all are successful and have the tools you need to support our students. Thank you all that are up here tonight for your time and commitment to our students and the community, and I look forward to many more speeches where I can continue to highlight the tremendous work of this council, because as those pretty blue shirts said that we wore yesterday in the parade, you belong here and we want you to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving down the agenda, any old business before the board this evening? Any new business before the board this evening? Freedom of Information Act request will be filed with Mr. Blaney in the back and available on our website. Any announcements by the board? I have one. Happy birthday, Mr. Renich. Pretty simple. I do want to thank everybody who came out for the parade. It means a lot to the community to see the school district. We implore you, beg you, if you're looking for some part-time job or full-time job, food and nutrition services, as we said. Bus drivers are also needed. We will train you to be a bus driver. All you have to do is pass some tests and what have you, and it's probably about a 8-week program, 10-week program, John, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But point is, get it. We're short bus drivers. I talked to some drivers yesterday, and they're like, yes, we're short. So go ahead.
Yeah, I also talked to the same bus drivers that Steve has talked to. After the program, we sat there and sat around and talked with them for about 10 or 15 minutes, and they were telling us how it's done. So you got to give them all a shout out, because a lot of the mechanics everybody in that building in the bus barn are out delivering our children to school and bringing them back and forth. And they're doing their own normal work that they're supposed to be doing. So just a little shout out to them. And they're down about 40 people, and it's hard to realize, maybe running a little bit late here and there, but they're doing 2 routes and stuff. So we appreciate what they do.
Announcements by the administration. Any announcements by the public? I believe that brings us to the moment you've all been waiting for, a motion to adjourn. Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Have a great and safe evening. And hopefully, if you're a Bears fan, it was just a bump in the road.
To welcome our first responders from the Romeoville Police and Fire Department. Thank you so much for coming. This ceremony today is all about honoring those first responders. Now, in this room, there is very few of us that were born 22 years ago. I know some parents were, I was, a couple other people, but none of you were born 22 years ago. 22 years ago, there was a tragedy that happened in the United States. Many people lost their lives. And we want to make sure that we are always honoring them on this September 11th. It's important that we show our respect, our love, and our care for all of those that passed and our first responders that responded to that tragic day. There's also many doctors and nurses who also helped those who needed us at that time. And so from today to this day forward, I hope we always keep them in our minds and in our prayers when we think about them. So at this time, I would like us as a school to please stand, and we will say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like you to take a moment of silence and reflection. And when you think about your time of silence and reflection, please remember those first responders that help us every single day. Thank you, everyone.